Hello everybody, it's Kate here, and this is my first Spotfire session for the Thrive Tribe, and I'm really happy to have you here today. I want to work through some real life, real problems to see if I can be of assistance to you and to start generating some thought and some ideas about how you might start to consider dealing with conflict when it arises a little bit differently. So I'm going to use these sessions every week to give people an opportunity to raise a problem or an issue that's happening in the workplace and see if we can find a solution to those problems, or start at least unpacking them and helping you identify different ways to deal with conflict. The reason I'm doing that is that often when we don't address conflict, when we let it take a life of its own, it becomes a little bit like a bushfire. So we've got a small problem, but when we don't deal with it, sometimes gossip and other things can fan that flame, and suddenly before you know it, you've got a full-blown conflict on your hands, and that can be a lot more difficult to resolve. So if you send me your problems or issues beforehand, then I'm more than happy to then sort of create a generic problem around the information that you've provided so that we protect people's privacy. I'm not wanting to at any stage provide information that might identify a staff member or an organisation. So we'll just talk in generalities and see if I can be of some assistance to you. So today's problem is one that is a real problem, and this is an example of something that I've seen probably multiple times. But this is a specific issue that was raised with me recently by a client interstate. So not in Adelaide, but interstate. And the issue at hand is that we've got an organisation that is working in an area where there is high levels of stress. I'm not going to talk about the exact business itself, but there are high levels of stress, and as a result of that, there can be high levels of turnover. It's a multi-tiered business, so there's a manager who is also then responsible to an owner. So they have to answer to the owner. So the manager answers to the owner, and this manager then has a number of team leaders working underneath them, and each team leader then has their own staff. And in this specific incident that I was dealing with the other day, there were two staff members, so two team leaders, and let's say it was number 4 and 5. And these two team leaders were having a bit of a bitch session about team leader number 2. So they were publicly saying some really nasty things about team leader number 2, and they were overheard by one of team leader number 2's staff members. So here, this person here. So they're having a session over here. They've said some really inappropriate things, and this person here has heard it. Now, what happens is that this person here has then told team leader number 2, and team leader number 2 has then complained to the manager, and I have been dealing with the manager. So the manager says to me, I don't know what to do. These two know better. So she said that she called them into her office and she spoke to both of them, and she just said, this is just not okay. You can't behave like that. You're leaders. You need to set the tone. You need to behave better than that. I really, what's going on? What, this cannot be tolerated. And they very sheepishly apologised for their behaviour, and they said it would never happen again. And really, not much more happened in response to that situation. And I think that was such a missed opportunity to actually find out what's going on. So this is an organisation that deals with a lot of stress. They are under the pump all the time. It is go, 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 go. And what happens generally is that people who've been here for a long period of time rise through the ranks. So if you stay around long enough, eventually you might be made a team leader. So the team leaders in themselves don't necessarily have any leadership training. They're middle management, but they don't have any specific training apart from on-the-job training. And often the advice of the managers is that once they get to this position, they tend to think that they've made it and that they can now boss these people around, but at the end of the day, they don't actually take responsibility for the performance of the team. They let that go. They sort of sit back a little bit, like we've done what we need to do. We've got into this leadership position, and our job is over. But realistically, that's not how leadership works. So when I spoke to the manager, I suggested that maybe when this all came to a head, that when she got an opportunity to speak to the two team leaders, that was a time to find out what was really going on. Because at the end of the day, nobody behaves badly or speaks out inappropriately in front of other staff for no reason. They were almost sabotaging their roles at that time, publicly making a statement about somebody else. Like, everybody knows that that's not okay. That's not normal behaviour. So knowingly behaving in a manner that's not okay. Now, as I said before, there's high levels of stress here. And one of the other things that came out in my discussions with the manager is that due to the high levels of stress, there's not a great deal of empathy between all of the teams, or even between staff members. Because if one person drops off, if one person resigns or is sick or has a problem, then that means a lot of work for everybody else. So as soon as they hear that somebody else has got a problem, they're sort of like, oh my God, now I've just got to cover for you. So there's a lack of empathy or care for everybody else. So that in itself is a little bit of a problem. They also have a problem that some of the team leaders actually trigger inappropriate behaviour with some of the staff. So because they're not trained as leaders, they sometimes have demands and requests that make it really difficult for the staff to sort of deal with things. And what ends up happening is that some of these staff get fed up with their team leaders and they bypass the team leader and they go straight to the manager. So the manager says that she spends the bulk of her week dealing with complaints from this group of people and dealing with complaints from the team leaders, and then constantly having to work with the team leaders to try and get them to be better managers of the teams. So the manager is just completely worn down with so much work, not getting anything done, going in most Sundays to try and do her own work because she doesn't get any time during the week because she's just busily putting out little spot fires every day from this group of people. So going back to our problem here of number 4 and 5, talking out of school and upsetting number 2, and then this situation happening here. When I hear of people deliberately sabotaging their own employment by acting in a manner that's not professional or okay, what's jumping out at me is that these two are dealing with major stress. Like they're prepared close, they're close to walking. They are majorly stressed, and because they're stressed and they think they're working harder than number 2, they have a go at number 2. And they think that that's reasonable because they are working so hard because they are so stressed. And I think that I've shown this multiple times before, but when we're really, really stressed, we tend to just focus on ourselves. So we have the world of me, And when we're really, really stressed, we just go in and we focus more and more and more on ourselves. And we worry about ourselves. So when these people are all very stressed, they all worry about, if you get sick, then I've got to pick up the rest of your work. So I'm worried about me. So these two have got themselves into the world of me, and this person's not fair because they've decided that this person's not pulling their weight. Now, chances of this person not pulling their weight is probably remote, considering the levels of stress that everybody's in. But they become an easy target because if, say, they were sick, or say they finished their work earlier than these two people one day, or something like that happened, before you know it, these two are looking over here going, we're not doing any work, we're suffering over here, and this person's now going to be the target. Really easy target of their stress, and they're feeling like this person's got off lightly. So the manager in that moment could spend some time with them, finding out what's going on for them in this moment. And they can express their disappointment in that behaviour because it's not okay, and it's embarrassed this person over here. So team leader number 2 has been embarrassed. This person over here is feeling unsafe because if the team leaders are not supporting each other, then what chance have they got of looking after their people who are lower down? So this person's not feeling safe, which is why they go directly to the manager, because in order to get something done, they think, well, we've got to jump the ladder, we've got to go here to make sure that we can create a safe environment for everybody, because the work we're doing is really stressful. So we need to start looking at where are the stresses and how can we reduce that. So the manager had an opportunity to bring them both in and just check in what's going on for you that you would do this. So help me understand what was the unfairness that you saw with team leader number 2. And by spending some time with them and finding out more and being curious about what was going on for them, they had an opportunity of creating an environment which made it safer and more appropriate for numbers 4 and 5 to give a genuine apology to number 2, and then to see if they could, the manager could then start working a little bit more closely with the team leaders and upskilling them in leadership skills so that they're better equipped to deal with the stresses of the job, so that they're better able to then manage the team below them. What often happens is because I'm stressed, you're stressed, we're all stressed, and then the manager gets super stressed because everybody's going to the manager. So the manager starts putting out as many barbs as anybody else. So they just start telling everybody off because they're stressed and everyone's stressed. And it ends up being quite a toxic and difficult work environment because people are not addressing the real issue here, which is how can we better look after ourselves to deal with high levels of stress? What do we need to do to reduce the stress in this work environment? And how can we look after each other better so that when we are going through this, we've got some resilience within the team to cope with things that might go wrong? And how can we care for each other better on a day-by-day basis so that if somebody does get sick and they're not going to be there tomorrow, it's not the end of the world, and we can go, look, I hope you get better really soon, and yeah, we've got you tomorrow, we've got you back, and when you come back, we would have helped out with those urgent things that were on your desk or whatever. I look at the problem when somebody is behaving badly, inappropriately. It's like finding out what is going on for them. What can we do to support them so that that's not a problem? Because the reality is that most people, in the main, want to do a good job. They go to work because they want to do a good job. They want to be able to go home at the end of the day and say, I worked hard today, I achieved a lot, and that was really good. They don't usually go to work during the day to sabotage or attack others, or to find themselves in the manager's office being told off. So when somebody ends up in a manager's office being told off, It's giving you information. It's giving you information that there is a problem that needs to be dealt with. And what often happens is, because people are so busy, because they are so stressed, there's no time to slow down to look at what is a different way that we could do this so that we don't get so stressed, or that we are better able to manage the stress that we have to deal with on a day-by-day basis. But you have to take time out in order to do that. It's very difficult to solve a problem, particularly a long-term systemic problem like this, if you don't do anything different, if you don't actually take some time out and stop and spend some energy working out what are some better ways that we could do this. And the beautiful thing about doing that, when you do actually stop and invest some time and energy into finding better solutions to the way in which you work, is that if you engage all of the people in this process, they've got a vested interest in making it work, but also they often have some incredible thoughts and ideas that you could use that will be of benefit to the business. So often, managers often think they have to fix the problems, but sometimes these people can give them information and ideas that they hadn't thought of before, that they are working in that space. They know it better than anybody. So tap into their knowledge. And when you tap into their knowledge and you tap into the work that they're doing and you value what they're doing and you ask their opinion, oh my God, they think you're the best thing since sliced bread, because they suddenly feel really appreciated and valued. And people love to feel appreciated, and they love it when you ask their opinion. Now, you might not use all of the ideas that you get from having that conversation, but that's okay. That's okay. At least you've asked. And if you ask and you put that information out and you have a conversation about it and you look at, what could work and what couldn't work and all of those things, suddenly you've got a much more engaged workplace. And that's going to make it so much easier for the manager then to work with this group of people when problems arise. So for me, the thing is not to get stuck with wanting to punish people who are behaving badly, because that's too easy, but it doesn't help. So in the moment, you've been able to tick that box. Yes, I've told them off. They're not allowed to do that. They've said they won't do it anymore. Tick. But the reality is it's going to happen again, because if you don't deal with the problem, things like that are going to happen over and over again. So my suggestion is that you work with the manager and everybody about how can we make things work better. And I'm very keen on individuals then taking responsibility for how they manage their stress. Because if we all take responsibility for that, then chances are we'll be able to deal with more stressful situations when they come up. So there's a group component here of better managing stress, identifying stressful periods. What can we do to reduce stress? What can we do? What processes and practices and procedures can we put in place to make this work better so that we've got more resilience and capacity within the people that we've got here? But on another level, managers and team leaders have a responsibility to manage their own stress and to be really mindful about how they react when they are stressed. Because chances are that when these two are stressed, they talk out of school, and they might not be aggressive in their approach, but they've behaved in a passive-aggressive manner, which has been to the detriment of somebody over here. This person has been talked about and they go there, but they didn't go over here. So if you create an environment where there's more respect and greater resilience and capacity, then if a problem happens over here, what you'd really want is these people to talk to each other instead of going up. What we constantly find when we're not dealing with conflict is that we go up. Everybody goes to the manager, but what you really want is for people to talk to each other, because their problem was with number two, or their perceived problem was with number two. Number two might not actually, there might be something else here that number two would be able to help them with to reduce their workload, or to better understand what was going on for them in that moment when they didn't seem to be doing any work, or whatever it was. So what we want is people to talk to each other. We want to reduce the amount of times people go to the manager. And we can't do that. We just can't do that unless we spend some time and we put in place better processes and procedures and have a much deeper understanding about how we work, getting clarity about roles and responsibilities, having a better understanding about how we deal with stress. And we have to develop these relationships. It's really crucial that we develop all of the relationships in this triangle here so that people care about each other. Because if you care about each other, if something goes wrong, well, then you look after each other. But if you don't care about each other and you're only focused on me, then chances are that you're going to be in a world of pain when something goes wrong. At the end of the day, what I work towards, my aim, is to get everybody in this group to go home having felt like they've worked hard, they've had a good day at work, they feel supported, and as hard as it is, they're okay to come back tomorrow. And when they go home, they rest, they spend time with their family or friends or whatever they do after work, they get some rest, they have some sleep, and they come back the next day and they're okay. We take the problems from work home with us, just as we bring the problems from home to work with us. We don't have so much control over what happens in people's home lives, but we do have some control about the experiences people at work have that might impact on their home life at the end of the day. So I think that we as managers and leaders and as employers have a responsibility to provide as safe and supportive work environment as possible all day, every day. And look, it's going to be days when, you know, the wheels fall off, and that's okay because that's life and that's what happens. But you want your team to have the resilience and you want them to care enough about each other that they'll come back tomorrow to fight the good fight again, because it's important that you look after each other and that you know that if you put certain things in place that it's going to be okay and that you start a new day fresh again. So don't look for the bad behaviour. Don't assume that because these people spoke out that there's a quick fix of telling them off. The quick fix is not going to help you. It's just not going to help. The stick is not a motivator. Looking after people and allowing them to be autonomous and to giving them the skills so that they can deal with issues and talk to each other is going to give you a much longer term benefit to your organisation and your workplace, and it's going to save the manager from keeling over with too much work and then having to constantly explain to the owner why, you know, something else has happened here today. So it's going to make their relationship with the owner happier, and it's going to make their relationship with their people that work for them a lot happier. So that is what I've got for you today. I hope that that's been of some assistance. I'm just looking at my computer to see if there's anything else here that can be of assistance for you. See if there's any comments. No, I can't even get onto my computer at this stage. All right. So if you've got any questions that you would like to ask me to consider, please provide them to me in the messenger in the Thrive Tribe. What I really like is for the Thrive Tribe to be available to each other, to support each other, to help them better understand what's how we can look after staff and deal with issues when they arise. It's really tough being a leader. It's hard work, but it's good when it works well. But when things are not going well, it's really stressful. So I want to be able to support you as a leader to be a great leader, but also there's there's so much wisdom around us. There are so many great ideas from other people. So that's it for me. That's it for today. I'll be back next Monday, same time, same back channel, and we'll have a new problem to solve next week. Okay, see you later. Bye.